23 or 24 on incline camber.
All right. What are we talking about again?
So we're talking about
goals. Discussing goals.
discussing goals, when you should change your goal, when you shouldn't change your goal.
Okay. All right. Welcome back to the Wednesday Word Wad. Today we are going to talk about goals. More specifically, when to change. Maybe when to change completely, when to adjust them, maybe how to set realistic goals, because that can definitely be something that can kind of deter you away or demotivate you when you don't reach your goal, when you think you should have reached it, and so on. So setting realistic goals from the start is, I think, important.
Yeah, that's probably number one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I think just like you said, number one, goals, we've already discussed this, but goals should be realistic.
Mhm.
They should be measurable, specific. You have the whole SMART acronym.
Yep.
I'm not going to go through it. But at the same time, they should challenge you. And you should enjoy the journey or the process in some way that elicits the outcome. Because with most goals, at least when it comes to fitness, this isn't life or death. Now, fitness may decrease risk of mortality. It may help you increase longevity. But at the same token, they aren't that important in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
So it's important, I think, to give that caveat.
Yeah.
But I think it is important because oftentimes what sometimes happens is people go out towards a goal. You see this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they don't love the process, or for whatever reason, they're probably not going to hit it. And that could lead to frustration. That could lead to lack of consistency. And that could lead to an all or nothing type persona, which I think is very, very not advantageous if the main overlapping theme for fitness is longevity, decreased mortality, better life. I think that for most people, whether you're pursuing bodybuilding, non-enhanced, CrossFit, non-enhanced, powerlifting, non-enhanced, anything of that matter, health is probably at the forefront.
Yeah, definitely health is at the forefront. I think the all or nothing attitude always leads to disappointment, to you not achieving that goal, whether it be nutrition and you have this perfect diet or nutrition plan in place, and you say you kind of wean off of that diet because you want a vacation, a wedding, or whatever. Life happens. There's too many variables. So the most important thing is health at the very tip top, and then those goals can just be that that kind of cherry on top, or something to give you that competitive drive to work towards something, to follow a plan, and kind of reap the benefits, whatever it be, either for a specific event or just a personal goal in mind.
Yeah, I think I like what you said there, especially towards the beginning. Your goals should be compatible with everything else that's going around you in life. So I'll give a broad overview there, but then I think maybe we can go into like some specific cases. We won't mention names, but when people change their goals, and it probably was a really good thing. So broadly speaking, I think a major goal that a lot of individuals have, we see it all the time, is fat loss. People want to get better in terms of their body composition, whether it's for reasons as far as looking better on the beach, or if they just need to improve their labs and general health markers. There are times where we'll be working with an individual and they'll enter a fat loss phase, and all of a sudden the floor gets taken out. Now, obviously, we also say this, there's no perfect time to start a fat loss journey. There's no perfect time for any goal, but we've had cases where people may have had a couple deaths in the family, or there was a death in the family to a parent, and then that individual has to go take care of the spouse that's still living. I've seen this, and they've had to do that and live with them for a couple months at hand. When the stress of life is that high, when it comes to nutrition, we generally recommend maintenance. So that would be a time where you might alter the course if you're kind of changing your body comp. Maintenance is a little bit easier because your body likes to stay there. It's hard to disrupt homeostasis and create adaptive change. So instead of focusing on that, plus whatever major life pursuit you have to focus on, that would be a time where you might go easier on your nutrition. Maybe you don't hit that weight on the scale goal, that body fat percentage goal, but you know what? That goal can always be there for once that life event moves on.
Yeah.
Another example could be you have a crazy work schedule and you're in a very stressful job. You have to get a couple of major deals done and you're working 18 hours. Or when life goes beyond the norm to an extent that is so great that focusing on the goal would cause you to fail both items, that would be the case. And that's oftentimes what we see with nutrition.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, we actually we have a blog coming out for December, kind of navigating the holidays and incorporating it, or trying to schedule your deloads around the holidays. Uh, is kind of is put into that blog, where you kind of schedule and plan out your deloads around the holidays because of traveling, because of the more tastier foods, and just put an emphasis on not stressing about it. And the holidays come around once or twice a year in terms of major holidays, here in the United States. So just kind of planning your deloads to fall within. Now it doesn't always happen. I did this for myself a couple years ago on a family vacation. We left on Christmas, and we were traveling, so I didn't specifically know where each meal was coming from. Only breakfast, and it wasn't the best options. We just got stuff from a local bakery, but we made it work. I made sure that I took some walks throughout the day. If we were in early from our vacation activities, I did a longer walk at night. So kind of planning ahead helps too. So
100%. And then, so kind of going into, I'm going to give two examples of when I changed my goals, and maybe we'll give an example when it was better not to change goals. So I'll use myself as the first example. I think I've discussed this before, but I used to powerlift. Powerlifted for 4 or 5 years. I got pretty good at it. And then I had a major quad injury, and then I get aches. And then one day I asked myself, I said, okay, I've deadlifted 700 pounds, which is okay. I was at 23 years old. I've squatted just under 700, bench 440 with a pause. I said, what do the higher numbers mean to me in this sport that I could get if I continue to pursue this with everything I got? And how much do I enjoy the process to get there? So being very introspective. And this was a conversation I had with myself for months. It wasn't like an immediate change. And after having that conversation, praying about it, thinking about it, I realized that the process of powerlifting wasn't as enjoyable to me anymore. The hyper specificity towards squat, bench, and deadlift, while it's really cool, and I coach powerlifters, I think it's an awesome competitive avenue to get stronger in. The process wasn't worth it. And then the cherry on top was me elevating those numbers didn't mean as much to me as it did when I was in my younger 20s. And then I did a mesocycle of more just general hypertrophy training, started doing phasic dieting with a bodybuilder approach, and I realized that's the process that I really love. That's what I enjoyed. So then I knew, even though like I was much better powerlifter, bodybuilding was the least natural fitness sport that's come to me in all the fitness sports I've pursued. I just liked it, and through the years I've been able to get a pro card. It wasn't even the goal per se. I just wanted to try to get better each month, each year, and so forth. So I found something I fell in love with, but it took me asking the questions, thinking about it, both process, both long-term, because if you're just doing it for the outcomes, that's usually not enough. But then you also have to assess how much do those outcomes mean to you. And I think that's a general theme when it comes to deciding whether you change the goals. There's also temporary seasonal goal changes too that I think are important that can be really helpful. An example, I'm not going to name the person's name. I probably can because it has a good ending. He was training for a bodybuilding show. He had just competed in the fall. He wanted to do a spring show. It was a show that I won my card at. And about 4 weeks in the prep, he just wasn't feeling it. He didn't have that like hunger to pursue his best physique at that time. He didn't really feel like doing the nutrition aspect of it that was necessary. So we had a conversation, and you're more than what your goals are. Uh, we decided it was best. Obviously, he's the athlete, so he took the lead on it. I was just guiding the conversation. That'd be best to go into maintenance, maybe do a slow mass for a while because he was already in a pretty lean state. And when the hunger came back, to prepare for the future. After I won my pro card, and then he got the itch to compete again, he went through his prep. It was his best prep ever. He was on. He got leaner than he's ever been. He had more muscle than he's ever had, and he got his pro card. Had he not navigated that and forced himself to continue down the track and compete, he may have not gotten his pro card at the second show or the first show. Maybe he would have, but we'll never know. But at the end of the day, he's loving it, and he's more bought in than ever into the process. Currently, he's massing. So it's Andrei Chaika. So that would be like a altering of goal for a long-term future based on the moment.
I mean, I like it. I think it kind of goes back to like one of the very first statements you made was like um, the goal is always there, no matter what happens in life. Whatever was causing him to feel out of sorts or unmotivated to train and kind of stick to that mentality of show prep. He took a little bit of time off, cleared his mind, got his mind right, and then he got back to it, and it was the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Whether that pro card was his goal or not, to get your pro card, you have to obviously win the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing with his with the people that gentleman is surrounded by, he just wants to do as good as he can and the best, bring the best to the stage. And obviously he's a little competitive, and winning it was a goal, and then the pro card was just that little that cherry on top,
exactly,
kind of thing. So that's really cool. It's funny, we can name names when it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing, especially depending on the context of the human being is. Yeah.
So I have an example. A woman in my life. Her mindset is that all or nothing mentality. So her is strict restriction, cut out everything, or it's if I'm having it, I'm having all of it. So for example, she's done this a couple times where she's gone like those, like you buy that like meal packet protein bar 21-day plan detox or whatever you want to call it. And so of course she's super restrictive, but in her mind, and we've had multiple conversations about this, but in her mind, this works, this is great, and if it works, then it's the right thing to do. And just trying to explain to her that like when you take a bunch of your normal foods and drinks out of the equation, the calorie intake goes down, and thus you're going to lose some weight. So for her, she in those 21 days, she drops 10-15 pounds, like very easy. But what we've all noticed is that she's kind of miserable in it, or she sees other people eating a quote unquote normal meal, or she's making dinner for everybody, but she can't eat it herself. So, and it kind of just goes ups and downs, because as soon as she loses the weight, the weight slowly starts to creep back up because she goes back to her normal diet. And then another time she read this book, and the book had limitations on when she could eat certain vegetables.
Oh, wow.
I've never really seen anything like it. I mean, I've seen ridiculous books, but it was like, you can't eat leafy greens on a Wednesday. It was that specific.
Only book that would make sense for that would be Veggie Tales. But that's because they're vegetables and they don't want to be eaten.
So
if you're Paul Saladino.
It was very bizarre. It was like certain foods on certain days, certain fruits on certain days. You can only have lean. There was one. It was lean lunch meats on one day. It's very bizarre.
Yeah. That's tough. Yeah. So making sure that goes back to like making sure the goals, you can actually accomplish it with the path you're taking, and that the path is a path you're okay with being on. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're on a trail and you know that trail leads to $1 billion, but while you're on that trail, there's like 1 million monsters, and it's The Walking Dead, and there's zombies, and they're like going after you, that $1 billion probably isn't worth it because you're not going to be able to enjoy that $1 billion. You're going to have PTSD, trauma. You're going to spend all that money on therapy. So in that case, not perf. There are times where people probably shouldn't change the goal, or maybe they are too, I don't know, not focused. I would say you'll see this a lot of times in fitness where people want everything. When I was younger, I wanted to be really in shape, good at CrossFit, and good at powerlifting. So I just was focusing on both, maybe putting a little bit more focus on one than the other. Monday, I wasn't the vegetable, broccoli, Tuesday, carrot guy. I was the Monday, we're going to really go all in on powerlifting. Tuesday, we're going all in on CrossFit. I got pretty lousy at both. I actually got worse at both. You'll see this oftentimes in fitness where people want to get huge and have huge muscles, and then they also want to be shredded. So then it's almost this like bipolar format of hopping. You'll see this with program hopping. You'll see this with fitness sport hopping. And that's okay if you're just doing it for the fun of it. Nothing wrong with that. But in general, not recommended because you're probably not going to create any of the outcomes that you want. And that process for most people isn't as fun because there's a lot of joy in results. So really isolating down and committing to something instead of letting your emotions direct you, depending on the day, towards the avenue of which you're going to pursue. Now, again, if you're just like doing fitness for fun and that keeps you being active, that's all great and dandy. But otherwise, probably not overly recommended because you're not going to get very good at anything.
Yeah. Have a goal in mind, and whatever it may be. And who knows? Your goal could be, all right, my goal is to get here 3 times a week.
Yeah,
and
and
that could be your goal.
And when people switch all the time, that violates that first point we discussed, which is when you look to change, like when I changed from powerlifting to bodybuilding, I thought about it for a while. I was really thinking about it, what I liked, what I wanted. It wasn't a rash decision. So making rash decisions based on the week, that leads to a lack of predictable results, which isn't as cool. And you'll see that, with nutrition, where people give up vegetables on Monday and switch back on Tuesday to carrots.
It was bizarre. I read the book, and it literally had like day by day what you could and couldn't eat.
It was probably just this guy's eating journal that he lost a lot of weight with. He's like, well, if I lost weight eating carrots on these days, then so will this person. But there's no actual critical thinking involved.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at that Twinkie, the Hostess only
diet
that professor did 20 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got. So, again, just to sum it all up, if you're hating the process, you've not been liking it for a while, the top of the rainbow isn't really bright enough to warrant that, really think about what you like about what you're doing, make changes off of that. And then if you're the person that is constantly changing, depending, but you're also frustrated because you're not getting great at anything, analyze your behavior, think critically, think before you sweat, and then your sweat will direct towards something greater, and then rethink and keep going.
Thanks.